Hello everyone, welcome back to This Is Not a Science channel, and today let's talk about science, and it's our biology time again. It's sort of a continuation video again from the previous one, so make sure you check out my previous biology video, which is about cells, cell anatomy, and I'll be assuming that you know everything from the previous video, and I'll carry on talking about different types of cells and how they're specialized for their roles. I would expect you guys to be able to name all these anatomies, no matter it's in animal cells or in plant cells, and be able to tell their differences basically. So if you can't, don't worry. Check back to my previous video. I will be explaining in detail how these anatomies are named and what their functions are. So make sure you're confident with these anatomy, and then we'll carry on talking about specialized cells. So let's start. Specialized cells basically means that the cells that are specified for specific roles. So the previous two pictures were just like the basic cells for you to know the anatomy of it. But if we're actually getting in realistic, for example, the human body or plants, every cells they're pretty different. Then there's a reason behind it, because there's a specific role that they have to fulfill. So there are several specialized cells that you have to remember, especially for IGCSE biology, where you have to memorize the cell names and be able to tell why are they so special and what are their roles basically. So let's get into every individual examples of specialized cells. We have ciliated and goblet cells, and these are the basic ones. So basically they're found in the trachea or oviduct. So in case you don't know what the trachea is, it's basically your windpipe, we will call it. So it's the tube that delivers air to your lung. So it's found in the trachea. And oviduct is basically, when you look at the female reproductive system, they have this tube where they deliver egg from the ovaries to the uterus. And basically these cells look like this. So we have the ones that looks like they have furs on it, those ones are the ciliated cells. And the reason why they're ciliated, because they beat back and forth, basically like a wave motion. And beside it, we have this canyon shaped ones. These ones are the goblet cells. What they do is they secrete mucus, basically a slimy substance. And this mucus gets passed on to the ciliated cells. The ciliated cells basically wave back and forth and pass the mucus up. And the reason why we have ciliated and goblet cells in our windpipe, well, first reason is for our immune system. So when we breathe in every day, it's very easy to breathe in pathogens such as bacteria or dusts. And you don't really want those things to go in your lungs. So these sticky mucus will eventually trap those pathogens, those unwanted substances, and basically the ciliated cells will then push it up, basically wave it up to your throat. And what happens when it goes to your throat? Well, everyone should know, you will cough. And once you cough, the mucus drops down to your stomach, where you have stomach acid, and eventually kills the pathogen. Next, we have the red blood cells, and from its name you can tell it's in the blood, and it has a very special shape. It's this kind of biconcave disc shape. This is what we should use in exam, biconcave disc shape, because it's like a CD disc. And by meaning biconcave, it's basically it curves in. So concave shape. And the special thing about this cell is because it doesn't have a nucleus. The reason why is because it has to maximize the area to carry oxygen, and it has to maximize the surface area as well by having this disc shape, so it can carry more oxygen. And the whole purpose of red blood cells is specialized in carrying oxygen in our blood. So here's the oxygen. We need to have as much oxygen as we can. So basically this cell is specialized in carrying oxygen. And the reason why it appears red is because it has a substance inside called hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is basically responsible for attracting oxygen to bind with the cell, so the red blood cell can transport it around the body. Then we have the nerve cells, and these ones are extremely important for our body because this is what's responsible for all our senses, all our actions, and these can be extremely long sometimes. Basically, their main role is to transmit electrical impulses, basically nerve impulses, so we can react to what's happening around us. And usually it depends on where it is. So it depends on where the cell actually is. The structure might be slightly different, and it's really long. Basically, imagine like a nerve cell connecting from the end of your toe to your thigh, like that could be as at least a meter long. The last two specialized cells for animals that you have to know is sperm and egg cells, and these are extremely important because this is what actually made us. So we call these cells gametes. Basically, they're reproductive cells, and the reason why is because they only have half DNA. So every cell contains genetic information in their nucleus, while these ones only have half of it. The reason why is because sperm is from the father and egg is from the mother. So basically, sperm contains the genetic information from the father, while egg contains the one from mother. And we have to have half amount for them to merge into a complete copy of DNA. And that's what actually makes us. So if we take a look at the sizes, sperm is actually the smallest cell in the entire human body, whereas egg will be the largest cell. Relatively, it looks around like that. And for egg, it contains a lot of nutrients, so that's basically why it's so big, because once the sperm fuses with the egg, all the development of cell divisions, all those nutrients that they need will be contained in the egg. And sperm, on the other hand, looks slightly different. It looks slightly like a tadpole shape, where it has a flagellum. We don't call it tail. It looks like a tail, but then we call it flagellum. So flagellum basically propels them, allowing them to swim. And every time there is a large amount of sperm, whereas egg, it's only usually one or two. Moving on, we have the first specialized plant cells. And yes, you're right, there are also specialized cells for plants. And the first thing we're going to talk about is root hair cells, probably the most important cell for plants because all their nutrients come from the roots. So it's in the plant roots, and it's shaped sort of like this. And why is it in this such weird shape? It's because it has to increase surface area, which maximizes water absorption. As you know, plants, they require water from their roots. They have to absorb it from the soil, and those waters are used for photosynthesis. So water is absolutely crucial. And the reason why we need such big surface area is to make sure we take up as much water from the soil, and in a very efficient manner. What happens after the water once it got taken up from the root? Well, we have the xylem cells. Xylem cells are basically dead, right? We refer them as dead cells because they do not really do anything. Well, basically, they look something like this. Well, you can see the individual cells, but there is a gap in between of them. And it basically connects it together to form a tube shape. And the whole purpose of xylem cells is to transport water up the stem to the leaves. So what we call this is a one-way tube. So water can only go one direction, which is up. And another function of xylem is because it has this strong fiber structure. It supports the plant stem, basically allows the plant to stand up straight. The last plant specialized cell you have to know is the Palisade mesophyll cells. This long name, it basically means cells in the leaf. Well, these cells look like this, quite similar to the standard plant cell that we see. And the thing with this one is it's filled with chlorophylls. Why is it filled with chlorophylls? Is because it requires to photosynthesize, and chlorophylls are responsible for photosynthesis. So this is the reason why these cells are found in leaves very frequently. And they're very close up to the surface, which allows them to maximize the amount of light it absorbed. And it also makes the leaves appear green. So that's why leaves they look green, because of these chlorophylls in the Palisade mesophyll cells. Well, that's about it for specialized cells. These are absolutely crucial that you have to learn them. It's in the exam board, and you have to know their functions and why are they specialized. And make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Share it to all your friends who hate science. Next week we'll talk about a different type of cells, which we call prokaryotic cells, and we'll discuss how they're different from these cells. So yeah, thank you very much. See you next time.